Kawaii, Japan's soft power. A meeting with the masters. It was sometime during the blistering summer months several years ago that I had my first real run-in with serious foreign aficionados of what could be called Japan's kawaii culture. The standard English translation for kawaii is cute, but somehow this word doesn't seem fitting to me, given the gradations, depths, and complexities expressed by the Japanese term. I had been invited to a casual get-together by somebody I barely knew, an informal gathering of foreigners and Japanese who were involved in the literary and cultural fields to varying extents. My host, a British citizen I met at a similar event but did not know well, escorted me graciously into his living room, which was completely lined with bookshelves. Guests mingled, and finding themselves among people with similar interests, most of them were standing around his huge collection, pulling various books off the shelf, deep in heated conversation about this author or that. I was a bit surprised at the preponderance of manga, books, and thick magazines full of cute cartoon characters that filled my host's collection. Smiling stuffed animals peered at me, packed tightly into every nook, cranny, and corner. What kind of world had I walked into? Noting my puzzlement, my host clapped me on the back. "Ah, you're one of those traditional Japanese gaijin, aren't you?" His eyes twinkled with amusement. "More into the classic aesthetics, am I right?" I had to admit he was. I've spent many years captivated by more traditional Japanese arts and literature, as well as Showa-era culture, and I've always been less interested in contemporary pop culture. "Well, we are mostly otaku here, but don't feel out of place. We like your kind too," he said with a grin, and then wandered off to talk to other guests. The Kawaii Underground. I had known for a long time that there was an entire subculture of people, both foreign and Japanese, who were obsessed with Japanese pop culture, and especially the kawaii characters that are its most visible expression. In fact, for most non-Japanese now in their 20s or younger, the world of kawaii defines their understanding of Japan to a remarkable extent. It is what they think of first when they think of the country, and many of them are in love with it. These days, even local American bookstores carry English translations of kawaii-themed Japanese manga, and a look at the internet shows web page after web page on the topic, made by fans and fanatics from around the world. In a very real sense, kawaii culture is Japan's global soft power, winning over hearts and minds everywhere. And it can make for big business too, of course. First glimpses. I often escort foreigners around Tokyo, and almost without exception, they remark on the cuteness everywhere. The reactions are usually positive or pleasantly puzzled. One friend from the US was very surprised to see kawaii characters on a bank advertisement. "Banks have such a sober and authoritarian image in the West," he mused. "Classical architecture, dark suits. No Western bank would run an advertisement with cartoon characters." Younger people seem less surprised. Many express a desire to go to places like Harajuku or Shibuya, seeking a glimpse at the latest in kawaii culture, which interests them more than famous old temples and shrines. The Yurukyara explosion and beyond. Yurukyara, as many readers know, are cute mascots, usually associated with a region of Japan, an industry, or a specific company. They may be sold as plush dolls or tiny keychains, or appear at various events in the form of human beings dressed in life-size costumes. One of my cherished memories is the delight an old friend showed when he first encountered a full-sized Yurukyara, or more specifically, a human being dressed as one, in Akihabara. It was a big round egg of some sort, and I no longer remember what it was promoting, but my friend was enchanted. Usually a very restrained man, he broke into a big smile and went straight to the mascot, wrapping his arms around it and hugging it tightly. The person inside the suit must have been surprised, to say the least, but he or she handled the situation well, silently embracing the seemingly crazy foreigner. Later, after we had walked around a bit, he wanted to go back and see if the big egg was still there, but I noticed the mascot edging carefully out of sight when we reappeared on the street. Probably one hug a day was enough. Yurukiara are becoming well known through the internet, said an Australian fan of Japanese pop culture. But the real cutting edge is kimokawa. Mystified, I asked him to explain this term, which I had never heard. It is short for kimuchi warui kawaii, meaning looking slightly unpleasant but also cute, he explained. I guess people are tired of purely cute things and want something a little more nuanced. As an example, he showed me a stuffed mushroom-like creature he called nameko. With its soft, rounded shape, it evoked cuteness, but at the same time, there was something off-putting and even vaguely menacing about its curled lip, which seems almost like a sneer. Like any other form of artistic expression, classical or pop, it is natural for kawaii culture to go through its own evolution and to become more complex. The only thing that surprises me about it is the speed of the change and the bewildering variety of kawaii items, shaped by an intense interest both inside and outside Japan. Feeling lost? Not everyone is happy with the kawaii cultural explosion. Longtime Japan watcher Alex Kerr bemoaned the trend in his book Dogs and Demons, pining for the sharper, more adult and minimalist aesthetics that were associated with Japan in the 1980s, for example. To Kerr and others like him, I suppose kawaii culture seems like a regression to an infantile aesthetic. My own feelings on the topic are more accommodating. Times change, tastes change. Perhaps after all that has happened in the last few decades, Japan and the whole world need a bit of softness around the edges, so to speak. It is still possible to immerse oneself in traditional Japanese culture. The addition of kawaii culture takes nothing away from that. The aesthetic is not completely to my taste, personally, but there is no denying it can enliven a drab environment. And it represents something new, alive, evolving, and dynamic. Art and culture will always need these qualities, and if they are emerging today in the form of smiling eggs and cuddly frogs, then so be it. I will continue to watch from the sidelines with a faint grin.